All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, Brittan, Micaela, Kent, Avi. We have such a powerful group right here with me today. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's such an honor, and obviously, you guys have been honored with the Ombudsperson of the Year awards. So we're so blessed and honored to have you on stage with us and joining us for this very special event leading up to the next Polly Award. So thank you all.
Yes.
So go ahead, Kent.
I was just going to say it's great to be here.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go down the line and just give you all a chance to just introduce yourselves to the audience and listeners, and for those of us that don't know who you are yet. Starting with you, Kent. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Kent Bai, and I do the Voices of VR podcast. And so starting in May of 2014, I started doing oral history interviews, and I guess I've published around 2.5 interviews per week since then, over the last 9.5 years, and over 1,000 interviews. And yeah, just focusing on the evolution of the VR as a medium, but also focusing on a lot of the ethical and moral dilemmas has been a big focus as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a pinnacle in Micaela, you're standing next to that camera. You go for it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so honored to be here. These persons that are around me are huge to the community. So for me, I always say that I'm starting this like a bit of imposter syndrome for being standing here with you. I'm Micaela I'm affiliated at the Urban Center for Development Society at Harvard University. I'm a deaf fellow, and I have been working in the space between video games and NFTs, XR, for the past years. My background is as a lawyer, particularly as a corporate lawyer, so I'm very concerned with the intersections of work software law and have kind of like removed the boundaries between the course and act like these concerns are just complicated.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we all see this in terms of being able to address these concerns or what these issues could be in the future. Starting now, and it's something that's really hard to do because we don't know what we don't know. But it's really important to try and get in front of some of these concerns so we can continue to innovate responsibly and kind of get the green light and validation from everyone else in the industry, knowing that work like this is being done, so we can continue the work. Thank you again. Avi, go ahead.
Sure. Hi. I feel really tall next to everybody for some reason. So I'm Avi Barzev, and I've been working in the space for over 30 years, working on a whole bunch of different projects over that time, all the way from early VR to Disney VR, and helped start what was later known as Google Earth, helped start the HoloLens, and most recently helped start the Apple Vision Pro at Apple before I left in 2019. I'm here for a couple of reasons. One is representing the technologists in some sense, and what we can maybe do better in the technology, but also on the ethics side, because I'm president of a group that we started about 2 years ago called the XR Guild, and it's a membership organization for anybody in the field, anybody who calls themselves a professional in spatial computing or XR can join. It's at xrguild.org, and our goal there is to get as many professionals there learning about ethics, whatever we need to know, and talking about it, so that it's normalized, so that everybody in the field understands sort of the minimum expectations. So this award is probably a really great adjunct to that, because all of us here are thinking about ethics and trying to help everybody understand what needs to be done.
And knowledge sharing is very important in this new and nascent industry where we don't know what we don't know, but when we're continuing to contribute to this in this wave of light of unity
I don't think people have a great understanding of all the ways that their data can be abused, including these photographs and other things. I think when you ask about just taking pictures, it feels just like, oh, well, cell phones, we got over that, right? We know you're taking a picture because you're holding up the phone, and we don't worry too much about where it's going unless something, weird is happening. It might be a, police officer might be telling you to stop filming something, those kind of exceptional cases. But the problem is people don't know where the data goes. And when we start talking about other kinds of cameras, like cameras that record our eye movements, cameras that record what we're looking at in the world, I think people have yet to see how that is going to be harmful. And when they do, they're going to be pretty upset about it, because that can be used to exploit us in many ways, and in some ways can even be used to control us. And we haven't quite hit those at mass adoption yet, but the whole reason we want to make sure that people have control of this is to try to avoid that. So the people who don't want to participate can say, no, I don't really want to be part of that ecosystem. And the people who understand it well enough to say, okay, I'm willing to trade some privacy for some features, they have enough information to make that choice reasonably. It's, in a sort of informed consent fashion. We're not there yet, though.
So
They can type in. Sorry.
okay, yes.
I was going to say something really quick, not to go like deep before our talk. But for me, it also has to do with comfort and how people use technology. Because even if you craft the best policies in the world, if you have business models that incentivize to override this because of comfort, and you don't get
I guess I'll jump in on that one. I think in other fields, people have to prove their products are safe before they launch them. I think for some reason in this field we don't have that threshold, and I think that's an okay threshold to have. It may slow some things down, but people can launch research. People can do research without that kind of a limitation, and can learn the best ways to do things. But as soon as you're launching a product at scale, you better be sure it's not actually harming people. And I don't think there is enough testing from all the companies. I don't think there's enough consideration of all the harms that can happen. And we're already past the point where they're shipping tens of millions of headsets. So we need to go back and say, maybe this actually does need to be slowed down a little bit, because a lot of it's premature. A lot of it's not yet at the level of technology that will work for everybody who's trying it. And that's a detriment to the whole industry. I think the industry will have egg on its face when we find out that people are being harmed in various ways, without us taking enough time to think about it. So I think it's in all our interest to be careful, just as the same would be for if we were putting out a new drug, a new medicine. We'd want to make sure that was safe before we put it out. And I'm not saying it should cost billions and billions of dollars to launch anything, but it should require a minimum level of double checking to make sure we're actually doing the right thing.
Right, for the sake of the growth of the industry, right? So we don't shoot ourselves in the foot.
For the customers and for the industry itself, exactly, yeah.
But again,
I was going to say this actually has a cover name called the original, which is like if you either innovate, you regulate too early and you start innovation, or you wait too long and you use out a problem, and it's too late to be able to reasonably do anything. There's like a very small window that's in between there, but like when it's kind of not quite fully matured, but mature enough to get a sense of things, but then to kind of bring things in before
Hi. Hello. She was here. She took a slight break.
Hello, everybody. Happy International Human Rights Day. It's great to be back at the Polly's Red Carpet Theater for our inaugural event and engage. I'm Julie Smithson, host of the Polly's WebXR Awards, and welcome to a colloquia of Ombudspersons. Leave it up to Ben Irwin to come up with the tagline that sends people to the dictionary twice. Actually, he credits ChatGPT for coming up with colloquia, which is a perfect description of what this event is. And leave it up to Ben Irwin to come up with an awesome title like Mission Responsible. Because we needed a sexier title than a table discussion on ethics. Considering the stakes, it's about a future we choose to accept. We're also proud to be kicking off Metaverse Safety Week within this event. But first, let's start the show with the big reveals of the Polly's honorees for 2023. It's our tradition that our honorees choose the next. And here's a video from our 2022 honorees, Patrick Cozy and Eva Haney, to announce who they have chosen. Roll the clip. Welcome everybody who's just showed up. Grab a seat, join us. That's great. Amazing. That's a great. Awesome. All right, there you have it, folks. The 2023 Polly's honorees. Neil Trevitt for Lifetime Achievement, Paige Danziger for Community, and March 3rd for the Pollies in WebXR Awards, but we will be honoring them. Gabby was supposed to be here today, but sadly isn't able to join us. Thank you, Gabby, for the essential work you do to safeguard our futures and convene Metaverse safety needs for our collective good. At the third Polly's renowned XR storyteller, director Kira Benzing and her team at Double I Studios have given tribute to Brittan work with a beautiful metaphor of her work in the form of a dance performance art on Zero Space's LED stage. Let's have a look at that. Enjoy that. Let me read it now. Here in the air. Yeah, Brittan's over there. Maybe she's getting some photos before we start. No, I'm trying to find the place. Oh, you're here? Yes, here. Papers. I didn't see it. Just right here. Thanks. Teleporting right where your body is.
When I step out in here, none of this stuff is rendering, so I don't think that any of the furniture is rendering, so she just stands right here. Should be okay. As long as she can hear us. Right, if you can hear you. Here, right here. This is where I am.
Yes.
Now just turn around. They're facing, you see how I'm pointing? They're facing down the long part of the table.
That's perfect where you are.
That's good. Okay, so.
You're so music playing. Music's playing to record. It's here to teleprogram it if you want to join us. Yeah, for sure. Actually, amazing performance. Now I'm here to give us some context. Is our ambassador for today's event is Kira Benzing. Kira, here you are. Come on up, please. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kira, and before our very eyes, you never have a new football game. How you did that? That was magical. 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 So you can do so many things. Okay, we are so proud to invite some of the leading minds in tech and ethics for this timely conversation as new policy initiatives in the U.S. and in the EU are going to impact personal data and how it will be handled. This event is an unmoderated, organic conversation with no predefined script. So all we ask is that our ombudspersons to give each other equal time and use their time to talk about why they see as a potential solutions to these well-established problems. So let's get started. Welcome Ken Pai, 2020 Ombudsperson of the Year. Through his years of exploring the ultimate potential of VR through the Voices of VR podcast, Ken has always embedded a social conscience, and in doing so was the inspiration for the creation of this award. Then Ken chooses Zeev for his work, which includes the founding of the XR Guild to keep ethics in the forefront of the public discourse. And Avi chooses Brittan for her accomplishments as a lawyer and thought leader in bringing these issues to the halls of power in government, academia, and international law enforcement. And now we have our fourth ombudsperson. As Brittan just announced, Micaela is our 2023 Ombudsperson of the Year for her leadership and advocacy. Please welcome to the Abo Gamer, Micaela. And stay tuned at the end for some Q&A by some special guests. And Kent, please kick off this very important conversation today. Thanks, everyone.
Sure. Thanks, Ashley. Well, thanks everyone for gathering here today. Looking forward to having this conversation. I think these issues are something that I've been covering on this podcast since the very beginning of 2014. Just talking to people in the industry, you start to hear about these potential, but also potential perils of all this technology could lead us into. We're just talking aspects of it. So with Micaela to tap into all the different variations for what you see is what your kind of initial thoughts are, and also the specific work that you're doing.
Okay, thank you. That was great. And you really, Kent, you really inspired me to get serious about this. And you know, early on highlighted a lot of these issues, and I think I'm probably like a lot of people who come to this through computer science, engineering, even design. If you studied as a doctor, you learned about ethics. If you studied as a lawyer, you learned about ethics in school, right? There's classes on this, and I didn't have any classes on ethics as a computer science major. There's nothing, and you see the importance of it now. You see all these people who are, you know, especially in the AI side of spatial computing and other AI beyond that. Or like, what problem? You know, what's the harm with what we're doing? We're just scraping the whole internet. What's wrong with that? There's a lot of harms that can come, and over the course of 30 years, I started to see them. I didn't see them initially. I didn't have any training in this, but you know, initially I had a lot of the same ideas people are talking about today with the metaverse and everybody getting together, and you know, how great is that going to be for having a 3D internet? And you know, I've seen 30 years of the problems of griefing, harassment, early on, right? That's been going on forever. It still hasn't been fixed. It's kind of inexcusable that we could go 20, 30 years with the technology and still not have viable solutions for how to engage in a pro-social way. And then when it comes to the tech itself, I've seen a lot of the harms that can come from wearing the wrong device, having a device that doesn't fit your head properly because of your age, or sometimes even your sex. It might not fit. Certain devices may not work. And I'm one of those people that's very susceptible to nausea, and I can see why anybody would have potentially problems using this technology if it's not done well, if it's not done ergonomically. And I think what we're seeing now is that it can be done well. Right? There's no excuse for doing it poorly, because we're starting to see headsets that are really, you know, usable for more than 30 or 60 minutes by most people, and that's super important. So there are positives coming out of that too. And I've been, you know, learning a lot more about the philosophy and about the regulation needed there. For me, the simplest, you know, kind of regulation is, if assuming you could write something like this, is you know, only build technology that helps people. Don't release features that are exploitive, that benefit some unseen third party who's trying to make money off of us. If you even have the most invasive technology, and say some AI that watches everything we do, like Kent was talking about, watches everything we do, learns everything about us, but only uses it for our benefit and with our consent, I don't have a huge problem with that. If people consent to use it, it could be a great boost to how we deal with each other and how we deal with the world. But when it starts working against us, when it starts working for somebody else's bottom line, and we don't even know what they're doing behind the scenes, then there's a big problem. So naively, you know, if I were writing legislation, I would focus on that, make sure it's actually helping people, not hurting. In the same way that the Hippocratic Oath used to start by saying, first do no harm, like prove that it's actually helping someone and not hurting them. And some companies seem to take this seriously and some don't. So I think we have a lot of education that we need to raise. And I firmly believe that almost everybody in the field, if they knew the right thing to do, would do it. There's very few people who are like, screw you, I'm going to do what I want anyway. They want to please people. They want to build products that everybody loves. I mean, that's pretty universal. And they just don't necessarily understand what the harms, what the bad decisions are along the way. So I think we do need that education, going all the way back to starting at school for a lot of people. But now for people who are already in the field, we need to go back and educate them based on what have we learned? What are the best practices? Where do things go wrong? And, you know, my goal is that some, you know, PM sitting in a large company who has to make a decision, let's say about, oh, do we need special accounts for children because maybe we don't want the children seeing adult content, would say, yeah, hell yeah, we do. We need special accounts, or unless there's a better solution, but we need to make sure the kids are protected. And let's figure out how to do this. And when the boss pushes back and says, we don't have time for that, we're on a schedule, we have to ship, that PM has enough ammunition to come in and say, here, we all agree this is important, and it's actually going to cost less to do it right because of all the things that could go wrong when you mess it up, including at the tail end lawsuits and huge fines from the governments. So it's generally better to do it right up front. It's generally better to take what we've already known and not wait till we find the problems that we already know exist. And then just pretend we're discovering it all over again. There's no excuse for that. We know what the problems are. There's new problems we'll discover. Sure, nobody knows what those are. But like I said, griefing's been going on for 30 years. Like, come on, that should be solvable. But maybe not in the way that we're conceiving of things. Maybe we have to reapproach the way that we're putting people together into these arenas in order to solve that. Because I firmly believe that you can't just add technology to solve bad behavior. Sometimes you actually have to choose the people carefully and set the rules carefully and have consequences for those things that go beyond in-world, bubbles or things like that. You can add those kind of hacks don't necessarily solve things. So wrap it up. We're here to try to figure out what the right things are, but make sure everybody knows what they are. And nobody has an excuse anymore for I didn't know what would happen, or it was the first time it ever happened. It's not. 30 years of this, is a lot of repetition, and I see the same mistakes happening over and over again. Now is the time to fix them, to work with the policymakers. So I'm so glad that we have Brittan and Micaela here, because they know how to talk to lawyers and government people and say the right things so that we can get the right policies written. And I do believe if we write carefully, those things are not going to slow us down. Those things are going to accelerate us, because they're going to filter out the crap that we don't have time to contend with, all the bad things out there that are messing things up for people in the field. And let's focus on all the good things that we know and then build from there. And there will always be new problems to discover, new areas to uncover that we don't know how it goes wrong. But let's fix the ones we know, for sure. I'll stop there. I think Brittan, I guess you would be next. And you're still muted, so.
access to justice, that's what I have to say about space policy.
You're still muted.
I think you might be still muted, Micaela. They should be able to hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I would have to charge my headset. So, I was thinking a lot of things that I wish I could have. I take my handwritten notes. First of all, I am a gamer because my background is Latin American, Argentina, and in Spanish, abogado or abogada is lawyer, so that's why I'm a gamer. And that kind of refers to the background I'm coming from, which is video games, ethics, and AI, which all know that is conversion to the space. And while a lot of you were talking, I was like taking different points from here to bring into the conversation. So I more than like a statement, what I want to do is like bring these things and put it to the table so we can have like a more organic conversation. And another thing about me is I'm a geek, so a lot of my thinking and philosophy and analysis comes from that space. And I was thinking with Bernadette, this background, that we have seen this, and there is this kind of like bad decisions are motivated by good intentions, and that we are seeing this again into the space that we want to create, and the people, like creative people and the good people that organize are trying to create technology that adapts human possibilities and kind of like creates creativity. But at the same time, as we were saying before, we don't know what we don't know. And I was thinking about drugs regulation back in the day, that the effects of that were maybe 20 or 10, 30 years from there. And we are kind of like on the same spot because we don't know the lasting effects in our condition, and not just in our agency, but also in the way that we form our memories, in the form that we interact with each other. There is so much to know about neurodivergence. How do you feel if you are a little person and you come into a spatial space and you feel overwhelmed? For me, it's something that I thought that I had to
and create these silos of opinion. And for me, what it happens when we add this layer of embodiment, that the things that you are experiencing are also kind of like being projected in your mind, you're feeling it in a different layer, in a different way. And how are we going to kind of like enhance further ideas about segregation, about discrimination, about how we think in terms of rivalry with other people? For me, it's very special day because we are talking about International Human Rights Day, but at the same time, here in Argentina, we have the inaugural day for the elected government. It's a far-right government for the first time, maybe in Argentina. And that, for me, it opens a lot of questions because when we were talking about social media and the impact of social media in how we create the democratic discourse, for me, it's like, what is going to happen when we add this layer of embodiment, this layer of introjecting the feelings, introjecting your memory, the way that we interact. I bring to this table maybe with more questions and more than clarity, and thinking about the philosophies of regulation, and thinking about these invisible constraints, because when we talk a lot about the digital spaces, we talk mostly about data protection and privacy, but for me there is this missing piece of the puzzle that is intellectual property. And when we are thinking about creating these spaces as open spaces and creating spaces, and all of these things are already being limited by the regulation that we have in this space, by intellectual property, by terms of service, by contracts. So we were saying this before in the red carpets. How do we find another framework, another legal frameworks besides human rights issue, besides data privacy, that kind of like counterbalance how strong intellectual property is? And that's one of maybe my concerns because of my own professional bias. But this is something that I wanted to bring to the table. And I also ended up with something that Navi was saying about technology. I always like to bring this metaphor from Star Trek, that if you go back to the next generation and you see people talking in the ship, in the Enterprise, even the bad guys, nobody was assuming that the technology was listening to them. The computer that was like the central computer of the ship was not spying even on these people that was maybe the bad guys on board the ship. So how do we come to this point that we have kind of like become so natural? And let's go back to the point about comfort and how we kind of like have allowed these barriers to come down. And moving into what Ken was saying, like this kind of like the possibility of omniscient AI, like recording and listening everything we do. And that, I was saying, like, we come from different paths into ethics, and I think it's like, yeah, I started with law, and immediately we need to talk about philosophy, because before we go into like the nitty-gritty regulation and the nooks and crannies of policy, I think we need to talk in bigger terms and abstract terms about the metaverse we want, about the possibilities, and how capitalism is influencing the business models and opening the business models for the metaverse. And also, a lot of the talk is about consumer metaverses. And for me, it's like really important, how do we bring back governments into the equation? How do we kind of like reclaim that power that was lost to corporations in these transitions from the initial internet to the commercial internet that we have today? And I will stop here and also get a battery for my headset.
Awesome. Thanks, Micaela. Keep us posted with how much battery you have as well, because we'll make sure to hear you before you might have to look out as well. I just wanted to respond to everybody having like little threads there that I wanted to respond to. I think just what Micaela was saying there about the expanding of intellectual property and how that is going to influence the culture of the metaverse is going to be huge, especially when you think about AI that's at the forefront of a lot of these discussions. And I think that's one of the areas that these different discussions with AI may start to say, what is the balance of fair use when you're privacy, but also ethics and also political power, but also having context-specific applications for ways that you can like define what privacy is. I think it's with that ambiguity of what privacy is that these companies have kind of been left to define it for themselves with whatever laws are there, which really are. And with the AI Act that just passed, and I've talked with people like who's also has background in policy, he was saying there's some aspects of the AI Act because it just passed. That I haven't seen the final language, and I think we need to follow up. But some of the discussions where some of the language of the AI Act may start to be redefining what biometric data is. And as Rick alluded to, there's this kind of connection to identity and stuff that's not connected to identity. So the reason why that's important is because all the existing privacy laws are kind of tied back to what they call PII or personally identifiable information. So if there's information that's personally identifiable, has specific protections that have to be managed by the GDPR and other rights and regulations. And so it basically says if there's anything that isn't personally identifiable, then it's basically the Wild West, and you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that's the kind of state we're in, is that we have all this new data. It may be personally identifiable, but I'd say the caveat there is also that even with facial recognition, if you have the data sets that are trained on just like white males, as an example, or white Caucasians in general, and you're not sort of including more diversity within those training sets, then you're going to have more misidentifications when it comes to facial recognition. And if you're using facial recognition as a kind of biometric to even identify people, and the end result is that that person ends up going to jail, and you end up having a disproportionate amount of harm that is to portions of the population that are not included into the social data sets. So I think it's really important to kind of recognize that different dynamics, and even though things like our face is very identifiable, it's not perfectly identifiable. Even all this information is identifiable. So identity may already kind of be fraught in all of our privacy books, but especially when it comes to what Brittan is trying to define in her work with biometric cryptography. And if the stuff is being inferred about you, if you're kind of extracting that data that doesn't have the same type of protections that you have, if you're kind of doing this extrapolation of what that is. So there's 80 different data, like 80 different types of characteristics that when it comes to the eye tracking, and starting to see how eye tracking is trying to fit into all of this. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot, like the reason why I focus on privacy, because I do think that that's the one area where like we do need the first step of like some sort of privacy protections. There are going to be other things like children and VR, other things that I think eventually we're going to have other legislation. But I feel like in terms of what's pressing, that's part of the reason why I've been focusing on that. Yeah, I guess I'll put it over to Avi and other things you want to sort of jump in on.
On the eye tracking part, it's good to note that there've been a lot of really good experiments so far using eye tracking data to diagnose different health conditions. And one area where we already do have existing law is in healthcare, right? In terms of our health data, there's a duty of care that companies have in collecting our health data and making sure that it's not accessible to third parties. Because you can think about, people want that data, right? Insurance companies would love to have data that they may not have about you to know how much to charge you, right? So that they can charge you more if you're prone to get sick. And so, the breaches at 23andMe are really troubling because that data could be extremely sensitive, but also in XR, our eye tracking data could be used in many ways to undermine us if the data gets to the wrong place. But I don't understand why we're not even applying the existing laws to those things and saying, look, clearly it's health data. The raw data may not tell you anything about the health. That may be just personally identifying stuff. But once it's been processed, if we know that you have certain degenerative diseases as a result of Parkinson's, or if we can tell from your combination of camera data and eye tracking data that you are, what activities you conduct in your life, we can find out things that are going to make you a higher or lower risk for different diseases. And so, that data has to be protected from day one. It has to be considered our data, and we should have control over where it goes. This idea, the sort of third-party idea that anybody on the internet who happens to observe us can record it, I think we just need to nix that pretty fast, because that doesn't even help the third parties. I mean, they should be asking us for that data. They shouldn't they shouldn't assume the liability for everything that goes wrong with that data. That should be something that is handled much more carefully. I don't know, Brittan, do you want to?
I kind of offered it that to disagree with this before because he believes that the GDPR covered by this. I don't think it does. He thinks in Article 1 it's covered by sensitive use cases. I think in an ideal world he would be right, but I don't think we live in an ideal world. Or that kind of goes back to what I was saying about vibes-based policy making, where the ESA did a really good job engaging with this. They're coming out with a report on XR, looking for the end of the year, which is going to be put in 2024. We have other stuff coming out in 2025. So I think they're on the right path. The approach that all this European legislation needs is more of a mandatory requirement. And by that I mean define sensitive use cases or highly sensitive use cases. And saying you can't use this type of data for that. So it's kind of like what Avi was saying, where you have a thing for this. This is what you cannot do. My fear after having been involved in emerging legal regimes that are international is that this can be just plug in with many of the process of ways to just be developed. By that I mean in America we don't have federal U.S. privacy laws, all different state-based laws. Some of them are based on GDPR, like this is the sorry, I view this. This is where the international law goes for me. I comes out to play a bit because I think looking at this different legislation as a potential quantity of laws problem that we're going to have to figure out, and it's going to be really, really hard to figure out soon before these technologies get cemented, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, just to elaborate on the AI Act, when I talked to Daniel before, what he was saying is that they do have this kind of tiers of harm. So like there's like the extreme harm that has banned use cases. So an example would be like using facial recognition for law enforcement because of these potential harms that could come from misidentifying people and sending them to jail based upon this data sets that may be biased. And so, and then there's like different tiers of like different reporting obligations. And so even if you are deploying like large scale AI systems, then you have to provide certain information to say like, here's how we're trying to implement different safety precautions, or here's the research of the harm. So there's different tiers of harm that they've defined. And that's one approach, I think, as we think about like legislation in general, but I think they're driven by a trial law process and also how human rights law that's driving it. That, like there's a way in which the EU legislation would be seen as 5, 10, 15 years ahead of where we're at in the United States, especially with the GDPR. And so I feel like it can end up changing the technological architectures for these companies that have defined do business in the EU. They have to kind of change those architectures, but we still are faced with these gaps in the United States where a lot of these companies are operating. There's not the laws that are dictating because it is such a fragmented space, and there's not like a comprehensive philosophy of privacy, and there's not like a comprehensive, like you said, privacy and regulation. So it ends up creating a situation where, yeah, it's very fragmented, but also like the being responsible population, they're not going to have these protections inside of read, and the enforcement aspect of it is a whole other aspect. So yeah, I feel like as we move forward, I'm really encouraged by the work that Perils is doing, and I don't know like how that's going to be filtering through these like international law down to like local laws, but I feel like the human rights approach is really good to like set these are the human rights principles, and then from there kind of dictate what the laws are going to look like. So I feel like that has been very productive as to how he's been doing things, and so I think Perils talking about okay, we need to establish this new human right of liberty that takes into account and defining different concepts like our mental privacy, our freedom of thought, and then also our free will.
we can think back historically and go back into the founding of the United States. There's a reason why the first 10 amendments are there. These are things that were problems at the time, right? There were problems. One of the amendments specifically says the government can't quarter soldiers in your house. Well, how's that relevant today? Nobody's forcing soldiers to live in our homes. But what was happening at the time was that British soldiers were living in colonist homes, and they could see what you were reading. They could see who visited. They could see who you talked to. Eventually, it was a violation of privacy for the colonists that the British could figure out who was for them and who was against them. And so one of the amendments in the Bills of Rights is there specifically around that. It just needs to be updated, right? Because we don't have the government saying the soldiers living in our house. Now it's technology living in our house, and part of the harm can come from governments abusing that, but we've seen now what can happen from companies abusing that as well for profit. And we need to revisit that and say, okay, those are the harms of the day. Those are the laws we have. Let's rewrite them for today's harms, but be very flexible about how we think about these for the future, so that we're not just codifying it and saying, the only thing you're not allowed to do is, take pictures of something. That's too narrow. We have to be looking at it from the lens of, what do we need to be our full and complete selves? How can we actually be safe in our homes from all these exploits that come from various powers that have power over us? How can we be safe? Well, we need to be able to have our thoughts, like Nina Farhad is doing. We need to be able to protect those thoughts from abusive actions, but we, at the same time, don't want to throw out some really cool technology that can augment us and make us in some ways smarter, in some ways more efficient, in some ways better. Those are things we would choose to add. We just don't want the negative implications that come when they're out of our control, right? So that's the thing we need to be the most careful of. And I think we can make these choices. We have before. It's just there's a whole bunch of confusion today around what choice equals what outcome. And there's a lot of education I think that's needed still. Micaela, are you back? Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately not. A lot of thoughts about this. I was thinking that for me, it comes back to business models, because when we talk about agency and privacy and data protection, it goes back that the founding business model of the current internet is on ads, not the exploitation of our privacy. So it's like maybe we are seeing the symptom and not the root. And it's like, for me, it's like we need to rethink maybe the sustainability of the business models for the metaverse. And that's why I always like kind of trying to hammer down talking about public metaverses. Because if there is no interest
members about how we can like change path. I really like I'm coming out with a paper next year that's like visits Lawrence Lessing's as well, like the things with discussion. That's a picture. But one of the things that it points to is that you know, if you look at the emergence of the internet, that was academic research on it. It really privileged certain things. So there are certain things that you naturally are the evolution of the philosophy of people created. There were positives and negatives. And some of the positives was that they were very so they need spaces for art and education and source. And where the negative is that in the sociological definition of weirdos, they were all white, educated, etc. The same demographic. So as opposed to university. And if you look at the evolution, and we're seeing this manifest in external spaces, you do have university, that's great. You don't have natural evolution. Civic spaces is for art and education that are probably supported, and I have to be really intentional about that because it will just evolve like you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to jump in on the public aspect because, like, all of these websites are these privately owned spaces. They're not government funded websites, and so they're these because of that. They're kind of well, there's specifically there's a Fourth Amendment which is protecting your home from unreasonable seizure, and then there's like these different aspects of like how privacy is defined by you know what's your home and what's not your home. This is public-private distinctions that are being made, and there's also a legal doctrine called the third-party doctrine that is also defining that any data that you are giving to a third party, technically according to the Supreme Court, you're talking about third party, essentially sort of across the Supreme Court, that the third-party doctrine says that any data that you give to any third party is not expected to be private. So I feel like there's a certain aspect of where with spatial computing that we need to kind of reimagine, you know, defining some of these different laws that have been passed and seeing like how does this kind of reevaluate this world that we're living in now, what some of these different decisions were being made. We didn't live in this kind of omnipresent, you know, everything always online and also all this data that's available everywhere. So yeah, like the, you know, like the stuff that you're saying, Micaela, around the economics, you know, it's worth noting that when I talked about the neuro engagement, the neuro rights, I listed 3 of the 5 that were connected to privacy and identity, which was like your right to privacy, your identity, and your right to free will or intentional action. But the other 2 are the being free from cognitive bias, also the having equitable access to all these technologies so that everyone has the ability to be, you know, have this access to these augmentations. And so there is this underlying economic aspect that's embedded in there as well. It's just worth kind of noting that it's kind of embedded into those frameworks.
The economics can work for us or against us. There's cases like if you look at the economics of Second Life versus ad-driven, even virtual worlds, to keep it in the same category. Second Life makes, according to Philip Rosedale, Second Life makes more money per person than Facebook does. So, and they have no ads. There's no ads there whatsoever. They make it off of their money comes from either renting the servers or from transactions that people make. People make things in the world and sell them to other people. And so there is a business model that didn't need to exploit anybody. But they still needed to solve hard problems. They still need to solve griefing, which they haven't fully solved, right? There's still problems that have to be dealt with. But once you have a business model that is based upon helping people, based upon empowering people, you lose a lot of the negatives very, very quickly. The negatives come from the fact that these companies are doing things that we probably wouldn't want them to do if we knew what they were doing. And so why do we allow that? I mean, maybe it's, you know, I know there's talking about amendments a lot. There's the First Amendment issue with sort of regulating advertising, right? It is free speech, but there have been other places where we've been able to create legislation and separate things, like the Glass-Steagall Act separated Wall Street from banks. We've kind of undone that and seen the harm that comes when we've undone that separation. But we could imagine a separation of companies that have a duty of care around our personal data. They curate and hold our personal data for us. Those same companies shouldn't be in the business of selling it or using it to affect us in ways that we didn't approve of. we can split those differences. I think we can design that so that the better business models will thrive, and the worst ones will not do well or be explicitly made illegal, and that's better for everybody. There's no reason the internet has to be based on an ad model. It's not the best way to do things. In fact, it's one of the laziest ways to do things.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll just jump in here. Thank you so much to our guests today. Before we finish, we're still going to wrap up. I would like to open up the floor to some questions. I know that, and I'll give you all just like one more final statement in a moment, but I do want to open
these companies are finding aggregating and collecting all this information and using it in context that would not be necessarily construction relevant to the immediate task at hand. It's relevant to the business model, but not always relevant to what you need to be able to actually have the technology function. So we're in this weird space where XR needs all this really good data in order to function. But if you take that same data and use it for other use cases, like say surveilling you or identifying you, trying to box, start profiling, that's where you get into this kind of misappropriate or inappropriate flow of information. Which I think trying to define those contexts and trying to define what's appropriate or not is basically one of the biggest problems for why this hasn't yet been solved in a way that seems intuitive and it should be solved. But trying to define context and trying to define what's appropriate or not based on the context ends up being really difficult and a traffic problem. But I don't think it's impossible, especially if you start from like a Hubert's approach of these basics of market liberty could be a way of helping to map all that stuff out. So yeah, that's my final thoughts. I'm looking forward to any questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment on diversity. I think diversity is part of the cure, and some companies still think of it as part of the problem. That they may not be explicitly, racist or sexist. Maybe they are too, but they're not thinking about everybody for sure. And in many of the groups that I've been on, when we actually make an effort to have the designers and the prototypers come from much more diverse backgrounds, we get way better results because there's plenty of things I wouldn't think about from my background. I do have a few things that are more on the minority side visible these days, especially with what's going on. But I'm also, a older white male, and so there's lots of things I don't have personal experience around, and I won't necessarily know what to do. So I have to be looking for other perspectives, other thoughts, other ways of other experiences of life to be able to collaborate on the best answer. And just to give you an example of where that matters is there's a bunch of people out there who think that, once we have these great outdoor AR glasses, they're really useful for, looking up people's, Facebook profiles or looking up the name of a building or whatever. It's like, that's not the use case I think most people want. Most people care about safety. Most people care about health. Most people care about social interactions. So those are the kinds of scenarios that you come to when you start talking to everybody about what they'll use it for versus the core set of people who come from an academic background and they're more limited in many ways in their life experience. It just makes for a better result overall. And so absolutely we want to open as many doors as possible and be as inviting as respectful and also as accountable for when we say and do things that might rub someone the wrong way. We need to know about it. We need to deal with it and get to a world in which we can just all contribute. That's critical. Good.
Thank you so much, Micaela. Thank you, everybody. I think, just the summary of that is we have to keep these conversations moving forward, staying in touch, and innovating together, having an innovation mindset. There's definitely a lot of things to consider in building everything that we're doing, and there's new things coming out every day. There's new AI. There's different solutions. One piece we didn't even get to, and I know we run out of time, but is blockchain technology and how that'll start to validate and secure and kind of lock things in, and that's could be another table setting better way to keep this conversation going. But we're gonna finish off here. We've been going for a while, and I know some people's headsets are starting to go. But if anybody can stay around and ask your questions, I'd like to personally thank everybody here. Ken, Abby, Brittan, and Micaela, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, everybody who stayed in the audience and is watching today, participating. Stay tuned and please join us again March 4th. We're going to be having our Poly Awards to celebrate everybody who's working in this industry. And it really is a big family, and it's heartwarming that we're taking care of each other, and we need to just keep on doing this to make sure that it is the future we choose to accept. So thanks very much, everybody. Happy Sunday, and thanks again, Ben, for putting on this event for our community. I really appreciate it. Thank you. If anybody has any questions for our panelists before they leave, now would be the time to ask. You have their undivided attention before the babysitters time is up. Great, Ben.
Any questions?
All right. Let's call it then. Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Bye.
Holidays.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you to our Ombudsperson people, and thank you, Julie, for the job hosting and policy. And thank you,
Yes, we're
Kara,
having a
for our ambassador, and Sophia for the red carpet. We'll see you. We are having an event, Meet the Bakers, launching a video on December 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern. You're all welcome. We're going to be meeting back here. It's sort of a holiday network party, so come along with your friends.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. And I'm going to jump out. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, how are you doing?
I can't hear. Hold on. The baby is out for a walk, but did you hear her during the thing going, Mama?
Yes.
I'm like, no, baby, no.
No, yes,
No,
baby,
yes.
yes.
Oh, okay. She came up with the headset and she's like,
I think these things need to happen, like my internet going